Okay, so that's how we know how to run an interview, as in, oh, these are the steps, what are the roles of the people, and so forth and so on, and how we're gonna write it up at the end. But what actually is happening inside the interview? So, what are the questions that we're going to ask? So this is the guidance of how the interviewer is going to structure the interview, to have this sort of focused interview to get at the client's problems and to help everyone get the information you need to figure out what to build for the client. It's a good idea for any interview that you're doing with a customer is you create a framing question to remind the team of the interview goal. Okay, so what are examples of this? Well, examples could be, again, these are examples taken from Nancy. What did end users of Firefly websites say we should improve? So you could be going and running an interview, a whole bunch of interviews with a whole bunch of separate customers, end users, and trying to find out issues to improve. And that would be a reminder that, oh yeah, this is our goal. This is not the typical interview question that you're going to have, certainly not in this course. But again, it's the idea of this framing question. This is more like what can happen when you're trying to work to improve software that you already have produced. But here is another one, what are the key issues that the stakeholder has with the existing system? And again, maybe for these very first interviews, a framing question is not important, but it could certainly be very useful for very specific sort of interviews to help to remind yourself to stay focused. So, but more important, I think, than the framing question is really to get at, there are 4 main questions that you'll sequence through. And these questions forms the backbone, the structure of the interview. And so basically, the first one is all about trying to find out the details of their working environment, the way that things are today. So you might start with a question like, tell me how you currently solve this problem. So you already have started off with some understanding about what the problem is. That's why you're having this meeting. There will have been some sort of pre-conversation about the problem. What we'll do in MSI 342 is we'll give you a brief synopsis of the problem. In this case, you will have already known this, and so you're gonna start with this. Another example might be, tell me how you currently use the system. Or tell me about your current solution to the problem. I think that's a great one. How are you dealing with it today? So If it's a problem, they will have already tried to solve it in some way, or they've got some mechanism at hand. Usually they're looking for improvements to their processes, improvements to the existing system. So either way, you're starting off with a goal here at the beginning of the interview is to find out the what, the where, the how, so and how their current environment. So what's the current environment or system? How does it work? Give me the lay of the land. Talk to me about the problem. Talk to me about what you currently have. Okay, this is where we start off. One of the things that this does nicely is this helps to resurface sort of the user pain gently. So when we have problems and we don't have good solutions to them, we basically suppress them. We learn to live with the problem. And so we suppress it as a real problem because we don't want to really admit it'd be stressful every single day to be like, this is a problem. But here you are, you're in a meeting now with a client. They've at least reached the stage where they want to address the problem, but they still might need some help dredging up the details. And this helps start the whole process off. They get to open up and start talking about it. So the next one, so after you've sort of gotten the lay of the land, a general description, you're understanding in the environment, the context of their problem. Now, you're going to ask them to do a lot of complaining. Okay, so for example, you might say, from your experience, what complaints problems or weaknesses would you like to mention about your current system? Start complaining about it. So the first one is, tell me about it. Who does things, this and that, what's the environment, who are the users, all that sort of stuff. Again, what's really going on, what's the current solution at hand, if there's any solution at hand. All right, what's wrong? What's wrong with that? What's missing? What's frustrations are caused by that, and so forth and so on. Now, after people get have said all this bad stuff, got that all off their chest, they actually, after being negative, after that big phase, they like to actually be positive. They like to sort of cleanse themselves of that. So now you switch it. All right, what do you like? And what do you like about your current system? Now, if they have no system, I suppose there might be nothing to like. This might be pretty brief, but even almost everything has got something to talk about in this regard. 4. Then we're moving on. This is the conclusion of our 4. What should we do to address the weaknesses you mentioned? Okay, so now this is their ideas about the solution. You're not asking them to design you the solution, but this is going to give you more insight as to what they actually see as the problem. All right. It's your job to design the solution, but they very well may have some ideas, and those ideas feed into, I understand better their problem now. All right, I can understand what needs to happen. Besides those four main questions that you kind of work through, so this is really an interview structure to help you understand the problem. A lot of the certainly user stories are about the resulting behavior of the software, but you're going to get out of this interview as you talk through it. You know, I would like to see the system do this, and so you can translate that into, you know, as a user, I want to be able to whatever. You know, you'll be able to do that. But besides those four, the team needs to come up with also what we might call a hit list of other things to check off. So what do I mean by this? Basically, these are all these other questions that you've come up with, dealing with the, you know, that you want to know as engineers to help you go back and design the right system. A big one nowadays often is, you know, you might want to know what issues do you have with data security, you know, or something. You might realize, you know, is there going to be any personal or highly sensitive data? Because that, as an engineer, you're going to need to consider how to design a system to actually work with that and protect that data. You know, you might want to be asking questions about how often do you use the system, or how often will it be used? And so forth. And I've talked about other things like, you know, what platforms, browsers, etc. These are all the things that you think that might impact your ability to design a solution. It helps so that it'll help. Now, again, most of these things, you're not going to actually need to explicitly ask them, because as a team, you will have brainstormed all these questions. The interviewer knows them and knows that they're going to be driving an interview through those four main points, but with the goal of getting some of these other ones answered and some of the details. Likewise, there's all sorts of times when the customer is going to just naturally, through the course of the interview, will answer a lot of those questions for you. And that's why we have that one person whose job is to be, oh, that's been answered. Yep, that's been answered. And so at the end, it could very well be the interviewer can turn to that person. Is there anything else that we need to ask? And that person who's been checking things off says, oh, yes, we've also wanted to know about this. Okay, that's the point of that. So I personally find this is a good way to set yourself up. You're going to get the lay of the land, and you're going to go from give us the context, complain about things, speak good about things. What are your ideas? And that will cover a lot about, you'll have a good conversation about what the problem is and what are the nature and the details that we need in the solution. What's the behavior that we're going to need to create in our product to actually solve your problem. And then from that, you're able to write those user stories. Okay, you're able to go on to the next step. Then you'll make a user story map. Then you'll work on your lo-fi mockups. Then you're going to make that working software, and you're going to keep getting through all those steps, feedback from the client. And you're just going to keep working to improve your shared understanding, you and the client. What does the client need? And what is your, you're going to really, so that you can actually build the right thing for them. Okay.